All right. So, nothing like a nice little cup of coffee and laughing at the failures of the regime. I actually just got a text or an Instagram message from a buddy he is a flight attendant, and I had messaged him yesterday just talking about how the thing got lifted, the mandate got lifted, and he was happy about not having to babysit adults. And then I messaged him this morning and said it looks like the feds want it to continue because the feds, as you can see here, the DOJ is considering challenging the travel mask mandate ruling. And he responded and said, yeah, I saw a post somewhere that the cases of COVID spiked in a day just because of the lift. And, I responded back just right, of course they can connect cases to flights within a day. And the incubation period is, a few days. Let's check it out here. COVID. Let's just double check real quick to make sure we're not spreading mis, or mal information. All right. So 5 days. 5 days. That's that's providence.org. On average, symptoms showed up in a newly infected person 5.6 days after contact. That's from WebMD. And here is the incubation period. So they say 1 to 14 days, which seems real fucking convenient. Anyways, we're going to take a look at this little video here. It's going to have a gentleman named Jeffrey Toobin who got caught masturbating on live television last year, or at least on a Zoom call with his coworkers. It might not have been live television, so the difference between getting caught masturbating on a Zoom call with your CNN colleagues, a private Zoom call, and on the air at CNN could really only be, 10 to 20 people. That could be the difference because CNN is not doing well. Not that I should be talking.
The Justice Department says it will appeal a Florida judge's ruling that struck down the national mask mandate on airplanes, trains, and buses, but only if the CDC decides that extending the order is still necessary. Joining us now is former federal prosecutor and CNN's chief legal analyst, Jeffrey Toobin. So let's start with...
Okay, so good thing. See, they probably put in Jeffrey's new contract, Jeff, you got to start each segment with your hands fully visible on the desk. Jeff has to start his segments now. Once you get caught jerking off on a Zoom call, you have to start your segments acting like a black dude getting pulled over by the police. You need to keep your hands visible at all times, and if you reach for anything that even resembles a gun, we're going to have a fucking issue.
This statement from the DOJ last night that I think was a little confusing because it said we will appeal this ruling, but we're not doing so yet, and we're only going to do so if the CDC makes a decision, basically that they should appeal it.
I've read a lot of Justice Department statements, and I had to read that about 3 or 4 times and then call some...
Jeff, can you make sure you talk with your hands? Can you please make sure you talk with your hands, just to distract viewers from remembering other things you might have done with them? Idle hands are the devil's playthings, but what's worse than idle hands, Jeff, when you're on television is touching yourself.
At the Justice Department for an explanation because I was so baffled by this.
Right. So see, this is something that I've talked about on the playlist that I call the Shill. And it's when, we've got this guy here who's he's the chief legal analyst of CNN. And he's playing dumb and acting, his analysis, they pass it over to him. They're like, here you go. And his analysis is, I am totally baffled by this. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a chief legal analyst at CNN, and I also haven't been caught jerking off on national television yet. And I can explain it. They're saying that they're going to challenge it as long as the CDC deems it necessary. The CDC, they're passing the buck to the CDC, which is really just themselves. It's a veneer of a separate organization from the administration, but it's still part of the larger regime umbrella. And they're going to pass the buck to the CDC. So what they're going to say is, we were going to fight for what we thought was our legal right to assert this mandate, but the CDC said that there's no medical reason to do it now. So, we don't need to. It's a win-win. We've washed our hands of it. And this is what happens when the regime starts to take losses. When they start to take L's, they get experts on TV to say, I don't know what's going on. And then they explain, some bullshit confusion that they don't really have. So we'll see what he says here. But he is about to basically just play dumb even more.
But the gist of it is they're in a difficult place.
They're in a difficult place because they've been caught lying multiple times over the course of multiple years without any, any break in the pattern, constant lies.
Because they really disagree with this ruling. And a lot of other judges,
their egos were really bruised by this ruling.
Have addressed the same issue and come out the other way and said the CDC does have the authority. But the problem is, if they appeal or if they fail, and the courts are so politicized now, and they'd be in the 11th Circuit, which is
See, it's just because the courts are politicized. It has nothing to do. No matter what happens in a court now, this is almost another facet of hyperreality here, and I'm not trying to constantly go back to that necessarily, but they're creating this perception that the activity of the courts, even on basic cases, can never be anything but an activist judge. So there is, whether it's masks or vaccine mandates or some other, area of life, there is a list of things, or it's not that there's a list of things. There's criteria for what the CDC has authority over, and there's things that don't fit that criteria. There's two categories: things that do fit the criteria, things that don't fit the criteria. They're just, this is ridiculous.
conservative court.
And so, my bad. So the idea that because something falls into one of those two categories, it's automatically politicized is a facet of the shitty political moment that we're in. And that is a manifestation of polarization that can really illustrate the type of disconnect that is driving shit towards a mountain at about 600 miles per hour in the air with a German pilot.
If they appeal, they could get a worse ruling that has broader application against the CDC. So the question is, do they push this or do they simply let it lie? Because remember, the only thing that this order does is stop the mask mandate between now and May 3rd, just a couple of days. And they may say to the CDC, let's just leave this thing alone at this point. The CDC was going to withdraw the mask mandate anyway. And
see, who said that 5 minutes ago? The CDC is going to do it anyways, so the administration gets to back down and act like they're not getting bitched out.
If you were listening to President Biden yesterday, he sort of got off message and said,
there's a fucking surprise. Biden got off message? Holy shit. I mean, the fact that he can even get off message is like a fucking victory for whoever his... What's the opposite of an anesthesiologist? Is it just a meth dealer? What's the opposite of an anesthesiologist? Someone who keeps you super alert and aware as opposed to keeping you super not alert and completely not aware. Well, I don't know. He's an anti-anesthesiologist, and Joe Biden is a fucking superstar.
With it, let people decide themselves. So it seems to me they are leaning in the direction of not appealing and just letting this thing lie till May 3rd.
Because I guess the concern is if they do appeal and it goes to maybe even the Supreme Court and it gets shot down, then what does it say for their authority going forward?
That's right. But the problem is this ruling is now out there, and the justice.
This ruling is now out there, and the citizens have seen that people don't really give a fuck about what the regime has to say anymore, so they're kind of struggling to assert their authority and maintain legitimacy, and oh man, I'm starting to get, my dick's starting to get hard. I'm Jeffrey Toobin.
Department feels very strongly that the CDC has the authority to act in an emergency way like this, and they feel that, one of the reasons we have a...
It's funny as fuck. Like, I sometimes, when I'm recording these things, will have a moment where I'm like, oh man, I'm saying too much or something like that. These guys are professionals. They're supposed to have plenty of shit to say in their little 3-minute news segment where they're passing it back and forth. It's more or less scripted. And when you see these people at like damn near a loss for words trying to explain the anti-logic in the Department of Justice's course of action here, you know that they're just fucking floundering.
CDC is to act in public health emergencies to protect the public health.
Right. So then what's the risk of not appealing this decision?
The risk is you have this
The risk of not appealing the decision is that you reveal that the emperor really does have no clothes.
ruling on the books. It's not of nationwide application. It's only from the Middle District of Florida. But it is a valid precedent if it's not overturned. It's not the only precedent on this issue. And the other risk is there are people within the government who feel like we still need a mask mandate.
Fuck those people. They can eat shit and die.
And we still need to protect people on planes and trains before May 3rd.
No, we don't. They can protect them fucking selves.
So that's the struggle that the Justice Department is having about.
It's a struggle. They're social justice fucking virtue warriors, and they're struggling. It's a struggle. It's a beautiful struggle.
Whether to push this forward or just sort of leave it alone until May 3rd, hope that the COVID situation doesn't require to return to this sort of mandate, but obviously no one knows whether that's going to happen.
Yeah, and it creates this total legal and political dilemma for the White House.
Right,
so.
and no one, they recognize that a lot of people are happy to see this mandate go. The president.
Fuck, they gotta make sure that when they do this shot where it's just like his chest. I don't know where the fuck his hands are right now. We might need a second camera with like a picture-on-picture angle in the top right.
Seemed to sort of indicate that it was okay to let it go, so they may just let it go.
In 5 seconds, I'm going to...
So, going to keep it short and just kind of stop there. It's a little fun just to pick apart the bullshit that these people spew, but yeah, I mean, shit's in full force. Not the mandate, but the regime reaction to it. Like I said, my buddy who's a flight attendant was already seeing what I'm going to call propaganda about how there was a rise in cases that they somehow had connected to airplanes within like a day. Obviously, if you hop on an airplane for a 6-hour flight and then you hop off the airplane and when you got on you weren't sick and when you get off you are sick, you were sick before you got on the fucking plane. So sorry about that. That's just how shit generally works. But anyways, catch you guys later. I'm going to do a video reacting to James Ray, the New York subway shooter. I downloaded a few of his fucking rambling manifesto videos before he went on his little mission. And that might have to go on Rumble as opposed to YouTube, but we'll see. Anyways, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later. Keep your mask off. Unless you want to wear one, in which case, feel free to wear it, and depending on your personal factors that are playing into that, I might call you a bitch in a playful, friendly, and loving way.